Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, taken from the book King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table by Roger Lancelyn Green. King Arthur's adventures did not end when he had defeated the Saxons and brought peace to Britain. For though he had set up the realm of Logres, the land of true good and piety, nobleness and right living, the evil was always breaking in to attack the good. It would need many books to tell of every adventure that befell during his reign, that brief period of light set like a star of heaven in the midst of the dark ages. And we cannot, for example, tell here how Arthur himself fought with the giant of St. Michael's Mount, who carried off helpless wayfarers to his dark and evil castle, nor how he made war against the Emperor Lucius and was received in Rome, nor even of his fight with the dreadful cat of Lausanne. But year by year the fame of his court grew and spread far and wide, and the bravest and noblest knights in the world came to his court and strove by their deeds of courage and gentleness to win a place at the Round Table. Many stories are told of these knights also, of Lancelot and Gawain and Tristram and Gareth and Percival, Ewain, Marhaus, Clegus, Agravain, and many, many others, and more adventures that befell the most famous of these than may possibly be told in one book. One of the first and bravest of the knights was Sir Gawain, and it was said indeed that only Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and Sir Percival could surpass him. He had many exciting adventures, but now only one of them can be told. King Arthur held his Christmas feast at Camelot one year, with all the bravest of his knights about him, and all the fairest ladies of his court, and his chief celebrations fell upon New Year's Day. Queen Guinevere, clad in fair, shining silk, sat beneath an embroidered canopy studded with gems. Fair was she to look upon, with her shining eyes of gray, and each knight bent in reverence before her ere he took his place. Beside her sat King Arthur, well pleased to see the noble gathering and the joy that was in the hall. But he would not begin the feast, for such his custom was, until he had been told of some knightly deed, or set before his knights some strange or terrible new quest. The minstrels had stopped playing, and the whole company sat quietly in the great hall, only the roar and crackle of the log fires in the wide hearths breaking the silence, when suddenly there rang out the clash and clang of iron-shod hooves striking upon stone. The great doors flew open, and into the hall rode a strange and terrible figure. A great man it was, riding upon a huge horse. A strong-limbed, great-handed man, so tall that an earth giant almost he seemed. Yet he rode as a knight should, though without armor, and his face, though fierce, was fair to see. But the greatest wonder was that he was green all over. A jerkin and cloak of green he wore above green hose, gartered in green, with golden spurs. In the green belt round his waist jewels were set, and his green saddle was inlaid richly, as were also his trappings. But his hair, hanging low to his shoulders, was bright green, and his beard also. Green was his face, and green his hands, and the horse was also green from head to foot, with gold thread wound and knotted in the mane. And looked proudly on every side, at the knights seated about the round table, and the ladies and squires at the boards on either side, and at Arthur, where he sat with Guinevere above the rest. Then he cried in a great voice, "Where is the governor of this gang? With him would I speak, and with none other." All sat in amazement, gazing at the strange knight. Some dire enchantment it must be, they thought. For how else could there be such a man sitting there on his horse, as green as the grass, greener than any grass on this earth? But at length Arthur, courteous ever, greeted the Green Knight, bade him be welcome, and sit down to the feast with them. "Not so," cried the stranger in answer. "I come not to tarry with you, and by the sign of the green bough I come not in war, else had I clothed me in armor and helmet, most sure. For such have I, richly stored in my castle in the north. But even in that land have I heard of the fame and valor of your court, the bravery of your knights, and their high virtue also." "Sir," replied the king, "here may you find many to do battle and joust, if such be your will." "Not so," cried the Green Knight in his great booming voice. "Here I see only beardless children whom I could fell with a stroke. Nay, I come rather in this high season of our Lord's birth to bring Yuletide sport, a test of valor to your feast. If any man in this hall is so brave and so courageous as to exchange stroke for stroke, I will give him this noble axe, heavy enough truly to handle as he may desire. Yes, and I myself will stand here on the floor and receive the first stroke of the axe, wherever he may smite me. Only he must swear, and you, Lord King, to give me the right to deal him such another blow, if I may, a 12-month and a day from now." More silent still sat the knights. If they had been surprised before, now their amazement was greater still. But none dared answer his challenge. So terrible was the man, and so fearsome the great axe which he held in his hand. Then the Green Knight laughed aloud in mockery. "Is this indeed the court of King Arthur?" he cried. "And are these the far-famed knights of the Round Table? Now is their glory laid low forever, since even to hear tell of blows makes them all grow silent in fear." King Arthur sprang up at this. "Fellow," he cried, "this foolishness of yours shall have a fitting answer. If none other will take your challenge, give me the axe and make ready for the blow." But at this, Sir Gawain rose to his feet and said, "My lord king and noble uncle, grant me a boon. Let this adventure be mine. For still there is my old shame unhealed. Still have I to prove my worth as a knight of your Round Table. Still to fit myself to be a champion of Logres." "Right happy I am that the quest shall be yours, dear nephew," answered Arthur. And the Green Knight smiled grimly as he sprang from his horse and met with Gawain in the middle of the hall. "I, too, am overjoyed to find one brave man amongst you all," he said. "Tell me your name, Sir Knight, ere we make our bargain." "I am Gawain, son of King Lot of Orkney, and nephew to royal Arthur," was the answer. "And here I swear by my knighthood to strike but one blow, and bravely to endure such another if you may strike at me a 12-month hence." "Sir Gawain," cried the Green Knight, "overjoyed am I indeed that your hand shall strike this blow. Come now and deal the stroke. Thereafter shall I tell you who I am and where you may find me. Take now the axe, and let us see how well you can smite." "Gladly will I," said Gawain, taking the axe in his hands and swinging it, while the Green Knight made ready by kneeling on the floor and drawing his long hair onto the crown of his head to lay bare his neck for the stroke. Putting all his strength into the blow, Gawain whirled up the axe and struck so hard that the keen blade cut through flesh and bone and set the sparks flying from the stone paving, while the Green Knight's head leapt from his shoulders and went rolling across the floor. But the knight neither faltered nor fell. Swiftly he sprang forward with hands outstretched, caught up his head, and turning with it, held in his hand by the hair, mounted upon the waiting horse. Then, riding easily, as if nothing had happened, he turned his face towards Gawain and said, See to it that you keep your oath, and seek me out a year hence. I am the Knight of the Green Chapel, and as such men know me in the north. Through Wales shall you seek me, and in the forest of Wirral, and you will not fail to find me there, if you be not a coward and a breaker of your knightly word. With that he wheeled his horse and galloped out of the door, the sparks flying up round his horse's hooves, and away into the distance, his head still held in his hand, swinging easily by the hair. But all at the feast sat astonished beyond words at this strange adventure, and it was a little while before the hall was filled once more with laughter and the joy of that festal season. The year went by full swiftly. The trees grew green with spring. The leaves, fading through the bright summer days, turned to red and gold in the early autumn, and upon Michaelmas Day, King Arthur held a feast at Caerleon, with many of his knights, in honor of Sir Gawain, who must on the morrow set forth upon his dreadful quest. Ewain and Agravain and Eric were there, Lancelot and Lionel and Lucan the Good, Sir Bors and Sir Bedivere and Baldwin the Lord Bishop, Arthur and Guinevere to bless him and wish him Godspeed. Gawain donned his armor, curved and shining and inlaid with gold. He girt his sword to his side and took the Green Knight's axe in his hand. Then he mounted upon Gringolet, his war horse, and rode into the forests of South Wales, the shield held before him with the device of the Pentangle, the 5-pointed star of Logres, emblazoned in the midst. So Sir Gawain set out, and rode through the realm of Logres, seeking for no joy, but a deadly danger at the end of his quest. After many days he came into the wild lands of North Wales, and fared through lonely valleys and deep forests, forced often to sleep out under the stars by night, and to do battle by day with robbers and wild men. Grim winter had closed upon him when he came to the northern sea, left the island of Anglesey upon his left, and came by Clwyd to the Holy Head near St. Winifred's Well on the shore of the wide river Dee. Near to the mouth, he forded the stream at low tide and came across the desolate sands into the wide forest of Wirral. Here were many more robbers and evil men, lying in wait by forest path and lonely stream, by rocky defile and by green valley, and he must fight with all who stayed him. Everywhere he went, he asked tidings of a Green Knight, and of a chapel also of green, near which was his dwelling, but none in the forest could help him in his quest. Only a brave knight could have passed that way, and Gawain endured all, foes to overcome, and the bitter weather of midwinter. On Christmas Eve he rode upon Gringolet through marsh and mire, and prayed that he might find shelter. And on a sudden he came through open parkland to a fine castle set on a little hill above a deep valley where flowed a wide stream. A fair lawn lay in front of it, and many great oaks on either side. There was a moat before the castle, and a low palisade of wood. Now God be thanked, said Sir Gawain, that I have come to this fair dwelling for Christmas, and may he grant me to find an honorable welcome herein. Good sir, he cried to the porter who came to the great gate when he knocked, grant me entrance, I pray you, and tell the lord of this castle that I am a knight of King Arthur's court, passing this way upon a quest. With a kindly smile, the porter opened the gate, and Gawain rode over the drawbridge and into the courtyard. And there were squires and serving men waiting who helped him to alight, led Gringolet away to the stable, and brought Gawain into a goodly hall where a fire burned brightly, and the lord of the castle came forth from his chamber to greet his guest, saying, "Welcome to my dwelling, Sir Knight. All that I have is here at your service, and you shall be my honored guest for as long as it shall please you to remain in this castle." "I thank you, noble sir," said Gawain. "May God bless you for your hospitality." With that, they clasped hands as good friends should, and Gawain looked upon the knight who greeted him so warmly, and thought what a fine warrior that castle had as its lord. For he was a tall man and broad of shoulder, with an open, honest face, tanned red by the sun, with red hair and beard, a firm hand-clasp, a free stride, and a straightforward speech. Just such a man as was born to be the leader of valiant men and lord over wide estates. The squires led Gawain next to a fair chamber in the keep, where they helped him to lay aside his armor and clad him in rich, flowing robes lined softly with fur. Then they led him back to the hall and set him in a chair near to the fire, beside the lord of the castle. They brought in the tables then, set them upon trestles, covered them with fair white cloths, set thereon salt cellars and spoons of silver, then brought in the dishes and the goblets of wine. The lord of the castle drank to Sir Gawain, and rejoiced with all his followers that chance had brought so far-famed a knight to his lonely dwelling. When the meal was ended, the two knights went together to the chapel of the castle, where the chaplain celebrated evensong and the whole service for Christmas Eve. Then the knight brought Sir Gawain into a comely closet and sat him in a chair by the fire, and there the lady of the castle came to visit him, accompanied by her handmaidens. A very lovely lady, fairer even than Queen Guinevere. So the evening passed in jest and joy, and they brought Gawain to his room with bright tapers, set a goblet of hot spiced wine at his bedside, and left him there to his rest. 3 days were spent in feasting and in Christmas rejoicings, dancing and carol singing, and much merriment. And even the lady of the castle sat by Gawain, and sang to him, and talked with him, and attended to his comfort.